Right. Welcome everyone to another episode of Geek Vibes Interview brought to you by Geek Vibes Nation. I'm your host, Don Fisher, and today I have with me a writer, producer, director, and also a former civil rights lawyer. Here to discuss his latest film, A Day to Die, I'm pleased to have with me Wes Miller. How you doing?
Hey, Dom, thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, man. How's everything?
It's good, man. No complaints, man. Just working and grinding, man. That's what it's about.
I feel you. So movie released last Friday.
Yeah, March 4th.
On in theaters, VOD. Can you give the people a quick rundown about the film?
Yeah, it's an action film called, like you mentioned, A Day to Die. And it's about a guy played by Kevin Dillon whose wife is kidnapped after he kills a underling of the local drug boss who's played by Leon. That character basically gives Kevin's character 12 hours to get $2 million or he loses his wife. And that's just like a quick snippet, a lot more little layers to it, but that's the general premise.
So looking at your background when it comes to film, right? You have a lot of you got your more action films. You have River Runs Red, Atone, Hell on the Border. Why is action films like the way or the vehicle you want to use to tell your stories and deliver your message?
It's a good question. I don't think I actually landed on that until right before this movie. As I was casting, Leon and I had a meeting, kind of chat about the character. And he asked me, he was like, man, what kind of filmmaker are you? What kind of filmmaker you want to be? I was like, man, I just like to make, cool stuff that makes people think. He was like, nah, man, that's not enough. Like, you got to be specific. So in reflecting, I was like, man, I think I would like to make socially relevant action films. And he was like, well, there you go. You're a filmmaker that makes socially relevant action movies. So, and I think like I probably have had that in the back of the mind somewhere as I was like working on the other material. So like you mentioned, A Day to Die River Runs Red does have like, nice action sequence, a couple of them in there. Atone was a smaller action movie that I was really working on saying like, how can we execute action when you don't really have a lot of money? And then Hell on the Border, which was a traditional Western, but also had its action beats in it. And I don't know, man, I feel like just a part of me, I guess growing up, have always loved action movies. And as a filmmaker, you want to make things that people will go see. And so that's like the business part of everything. And so I think like because it really meets my sensibilities and also it allowed me to, become a commercial filmmaker and also be able to keep a part of myself in the material. And it's just kind of like where the road started leading me.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it shines through because I think all the action aside, the social commentary is what leaps out at me. You're from Memphis. I'm from Nashville. I've been
all right, 615.
Yeah, I've been there, a number of times. So the cities are very similar in the things that we see. It gets glorified sometimes, but it's part of our lives, and we try to make sense of it and then navigate going forward. And with my writing, your filmmaking, we're able to kind of make sense of the stuff around us and kind of add that context to the things that we do. So how did growing up in Memphis affect your work that you've been doing?
It's one of those things where you don't really consciously think about it all the time. But where we grow up and the experiences that we go through and they shape us, you know what I mean? Like it's just part of who you are. And so a lot of the things that I've seen, the things that I've had to survive through, the things I've had to overcome, it just becomes ingrained and it lets you see the world from a different perspective that people who haven't had to struggle through some of those issues or areas. It gives you just a little bit of I guess I say authority to talk about it because you're talking about it from an honest place and know exactly what it is. as opposed to a lot of times we get our stories told from people who haven't seen it or haven't been through it, and it becomes stereotypical at that point or cliched. So and then also my grandmother was like a union worker with AFSCME, negotiated for teachers. So I don't know, man. It's just like ever since I was younger, just always like fighting for the underdog, man. That's just always who I've been. And so I think having all those experiences as I sit down to write, as I sit down and look at material and I'm reading it, it gives me just the ability to look at it from a different perspective that the original author or producer may not have seen as they were, putting it together.
Yeah, I think that's why I like. First off, you got to work with like some legends, like right off the rip in the past films, and this one you have Leon and Bruce Willis. Like I haven't seen Leon in a while. When I saw him on screen, I was like, "Oh, he got Leon? Like, what are you know what I mean?" And in his character, to what you're saying, we've seen like the dope boys or the kingpin type guys in our cities, and then they're looked at as villains a lot of time, but there is this side of them that is that they are on some level trying to help people. Sometimes they're trying to you know uh give out money. They're trying to, hey, stay in school because you don't want to go this route. And I think that's why I like this character, because he was nuanced, where he can be easily looked at as the villain, but he's a little more layered than that. And on some level, he's a businessman. So the things that he does just as part of his business, it may not be a good thing that he does these things, but that's his business. But he is a nuanced character. So when you're writing someone like him, I know that there's possibly some frustration from the way we grew up and the way the world is, and anger. How much of that is like, like when you're writing a character with these certain lines, how much do you like think about, should I go all in on these things I want to say, or do I want to kind of keep it measured just a little bit?
That's a good question, man. I think like I always start going all in, then I pull back, because, at the end of the day, we're here to entertain and drop nuggets and don't want it entirely too heavy. And then I pull back to the point of, but I just make sure it stays true to that character. So like, what would Pettis really, like, how far would he go? Because he's a very measured person. Everything he says and does is calculated. So, he would say just enough to pierce a little protective armor these guys have, since they actually have the upper hand at the time when a lot of his confrontation occurs. So yeah, I definitely kind of pull back, and yeah, and just always, it's just always the last piece of it is, staying true to the character. And yeah, man, I had old heads as I was coming up that would keep me out of trouble, man. No matter how bad I tried to go with them or hang out, they'd be like, no, man, like, no, you're not going on this path. Go, like, go play some ball, go do something. So, we know those people, and, we just, as I was just going through, I kind of felt like the whole piece was kind of like a metaphor for, like kind of where we are as a community, as the world, we all these different places, and it just kind of gave a little piece for like, look, like what happens if us from all these different parts of the world or different perspectives, I may be doing something bad for a good reason. He may be doing something good for a bad reason. How do we put all that aside and like overcome a common, evil, or to accomplish a common good? So everything he said needed to lead us to that spot.
Yeah, there's definitely some like lines where I'm thinking like, it ain't no fun when the rabbits got the gun. Like that's all I could think about. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, man. Like what you gonna
Yeah.
do? Like
Yeah.
how much with that, along with your civil rights lawyer, your law degree, does that, like with some of your stories that I've seen, it all kind of seems to connect. So I could see you come through in even just the synopsis of the film. Are these like certain stories or bits and pieces of cases you've heard or had to try that you tie into the stories?
No, not really. I think more so with the civil rights work, it allowed me to see the best of humanity and also the worst of humanity. You know, I've seen, I would tease my mom and be like, man, God's greatest creation are people and God's worst creation are people. And so, I think, so growing up, where I grew up, I needed that legal education to help expand my mind and to see people in differently, um, all people. So, I think it gave me just a little bit deeper breadth of knowledge of the human condition, as well as a little common sense to help navigate this business because it's really tough and difficult, in the show business side of show business. So that's kind of more where it comes from. And so, it's more indirectly influenced, but definitely allows me to say, look, I got to see both sides. Let's look at both sides and then let's figure it out.
Yeah, that's very true. So this film, Bruce Willis, Leon, Frank Grillo, how are you like? When I'm looking at your resume, I mean, out the gate, you're working with a lot of recognizable, well-known faces. How did that come about? And then how was that like feel that you kind of are thrust into like in the deep of it kind of very early, and now you can just kind of navigate your way through?
It's an interesting feeling. So I'm really blessed, like everybody that I've worked with has been like really great. And so, I'm thankful and understand like that's not necessarily quote unquote the norm. What it did do is like, like the earlier films for me, because I didn't do film school, every film that I did was working on a specific, piece of filmmaking. And, I kind of feel like with the day to die, I've been able to kind of put all of those together. But so it's been a great feeling and watching myself learn and grow. But like when you're in film school, you make early films, you're kind of protected. Nobody really sees them. Mine, because I didn't do film school and working to be a commercial filmmaker, I like people see them. And so you get to see the learning and the growth and everything, which is a positive and could also be a negative, to a certain extent. But as far as like working with the talent, man, they've taught me so much. They've helped me grow so fast as far as being like a director. And like, yeah, man, they like, that's just honestly one of the most joyful parts of directing is actually sitting down and working with the actors.
With this story, was there? I mean, so it's set in Jackson, Mississippi. So why Jackson, or why? I mean, it seems like a lot of the stories, have this very, if they're not in the South, they have a very Southern feel. So is that like deliberate, and why Mississippi?
So Mississippi, because the financiers approved it as a shooting location because they have a wonderful tax credit and very friendly to film. But for me, I needed somewhere that felt cityish, that felt like an urban center, and that had a wonderful urban landscape as we shot. And so I went to Jackson to scope it and, scout it. And when I got there and, my producing partner, Curtis Nichols, was on the ground and led me around, we met the mayor, met the police chief, the fire chief, senators, business people in the community. And they were, man, like hands down, were so welcoming. And it was just like, okay, like this is a cool place, like cool people, looks great. Let's call it here. Let's shoot here. And that's kind of how it led, man. So as far as, the being in the South, I'm a Southern dude. So like, that's what I know. Like, I don't know if, putting me in New York to go shoot something where I don't know it would be the best thing. I mean, of course, if I have time to research it and stuff, cool.
Right.
But like, the South doesn't get a lot of love, on the big screen. And so you can either chase trends and go try to shoot something that looks like LA or try to go shoot something that looks like New York, or you can just shoot something that's based in the South. And outside of Atlanta, maybe sometimes New Orleans, you don't really see much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, almost every, especially a story like this, it's almost always New York, LA, Chicago,
Mhm.
something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I mean, those things happen everywhere. These types of stories, even that, you know, a lot of these things might not completely happen, but we see them on the news all the time, no matter what
Right.
city you're in. So yeah, like I definitely appreciate it being in the South. We don't see it. If we do see something from the South that takes place outside of Atlanta, it's normally somewhere in the woods, and you don't know where it's shot until the very end. You're like, oh, it was in Lebanon, Tennessee. You're like, there was trees. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, like there's no identity to that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and I think that also helps too with a certain stigma that people have on Southern people. You know, I've been at, I think it was Ohio years ago, and someone was like, speak Tennessee. And I was like, I don't know what that means, man. Like, I'm just a guy. I speak how I speak. I don't have
Yeah.
a necessary, you know, specific speech to that region.
Right.
But I had a lot of fun with this film. I mean, it kind of surprised me. I was, you know, once it got like the first sequence, I'm like, okay, it's going down. All right, all right. And then once you really get into it, I didn't know who to root for, which I think is
Yeah.
good because you kind of there's nuance to all these characters. You clearly have one guy, then be like, you know what, I don't like him. But
Mhm.
like the story, the way it comes together is really fun to watch. I know you've worked with Frank Grillo before,
Yeah.
and there was another guy, the bodyguard. He worked with him before, right?
Yeah, the bodyguard and the guy who plays Tim, um, and then also the guy who plays Steve, the country boy. We've worked together before on quite a few of them on Hell on the Border on the last one. Yeah.
So is that like, because you know, we see that a lot in film where certain directors or producers have like their kind of guys or girls that they, like, hey, you know, we got this project working on. Is that something that's easy to reach out to them and like, hey, we got a new project. You want to get along with it?
Yeah, I kind of feel like we lose a lot of sense of community when we're trying to strive to move, quote unquote, up the ladder. And for me, making films is really hard.
Yeah.
It's like extremely hard, even harder than practicing law. And you're on the grind for like, 20 to 30 days. You want to be there with people you enjoy working with and who are talented, So yeah, man, if I get a role for like one of my homies that I feel like are perfect for it, man, I'm going to bring them in. And they respect the fact that if I don't think they're perfect for it, that, I have to go get somebody who is perfect for it. But even Vernon Davis, we worked together on Hell on the Border, and watching his growth, from that first one to now, it's just been amazing. So, I just, I want to continue to make films, work with people I enjoy working with. And yeah, and if we all rise together, that's awesome.
Is there, first off, I love the Vernon Davis, man. I love that he has this second career, and it's really good to
Hmm.
see because he definitely does like pop off the screen when he's on
Hmm.
there. Um, but is there a from this film? Is there a specific message? If it's not already obvious to some people, but is there a specific message you want people to take away from this film?
Yeah, I think like I think if I had to distill it down to something simple, it would be, we can't continue to prejudge everybody, and there will come a time where we need to put all differences aside and join together. And no matter how bad things were between us and another group, sometimes we got to put it all aside to overcome a common evil. Um, yeah, that would be the message, and then just hopefully, just they enjoy the ride and enjoy the characters and have fun with it too.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more deep than maybe people may when you see the trailer. It's a lot more deep than you think because it is the brotherhood, and you know I have a saying that we're all stuck in the same traffic. You know, no
I
matter
like
what
that.
kind of car you're driving, it could be a Lambo, it could be a beat up Honda. If we're in the same interstate, we're all the same spot.
Yep, I like that.
So, what do you have coming in the future?
Yeah, so right now we're in pre-production on another film. It's called 3 Mile In, and we'll be working with Kelly Rowland. She'll be starring in that one. And it's kind of like a Reservoir Dogs meet Smoking Aces kind of film. So it's, kind of stylized and wacky and wild. And yeah, getting ready for it.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
um, Let me see. Do I have anything? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So like you said, films are very hard to make. Were there any difficulties making the film, or any things that you wanted to put in there, but they just, had to get edited out?
No, I think, this is probably the first time that I've made a film that I was able to capture at least 95 to 99% of what I was going for, on the beginning. And that's because we had a lot of prep, and my team members were like really good between my stunts and my special effects, makeup, everybody, man. Our armorer, who was just like amazing. We had a great squad who, we really took the time and prep to like line everything up, shot with multiple cameras, shot with 6K cameras. So, we made sure we had enough coverage. And yeah, man, so it was difficult. Like, we didn't have like a lot of extra time. But like, I protected the time with the actors, and then we started shooting, and, Kevin would tease me. It's like, man, we're just getting it, but we're getting it. And, so we are, yeah, we just got it every day, but we got it.
I appreciate your time, man. This was fun.
Cool.
And I'm really excited to see what you do in the future, because every time I've had to, every time I Googled your name, it's like budding filmmaker. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like there's a collective conscience of like, you're one of the people to look out for.
I appreciate that, man.
And able to like put these stories in this kind of vehicle, and these messages in this kind of vehicle, and action films or anything of the sort is much, it's needed and necessary. And I think the way you've done it makes it palatable for people to like receive something without them like, oh, they're like telling me what I have to think,
Right.
But yes, out now, theaters, VOD, A Time to Die. Where can people find you on social media?
Best place is Instagram. I am Wes Miller. And I've been horrible at it, but I've been posting a lot more now. So I'll keep people in the loop on like, doing behind the scenes stuff from like the next shoot and the prep and everything. So getting it going.
Yeah, social media is hard, man. I struggle with it every day. And what I do want to tell you that you have like the perfect director name, man. Like, it's like if you hear the name Wes Miller, it just sounds like a director. And
that's cool.
You're in good company with Wes Craven, Wes Anderson. So like the next Wes is here.
I got something to strive up to, man. Those guys are dope. So yeah.
But yeah, I'm down for another talk when your next film drops.
100%.
But yeah, I appreciate your time, and everybody go check out A Time to Die, out now. You're gonna like it.
All right, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Peace.
All right, man.